All right, everyone, thank you for joining. And today's topic is about blood sugar support, also insulin resistance, and what else?
Well, we have a lot of topics. One thing that we actually wanted to start out with is that this topic of blood sugar balance and regulation is so vast. We're going to touch on that today, but because this is a just slightly over an hour call and we're doing this as a free webinar, this is something we're not going to delve into every single topic. Okay, so we want you to bear with us on that. We're going to touch on some high points that are really important to understand how all of the maybe the language of blood sugar regulation works. You're going to get some introduction to some different aspects. So we talk about dysregulation, we mean hypoglycemia, we mean hyperglycemia and insulin resistance. So we're going to touch on those topics, and we're also going to be talking a lot about what kinds of supplement support you can use and some other items that Masami is going to introduce that you can use to help with balancing blood sugar in conjunction with, and this is important, a healthy lifestyle. Okay. Those two things do not go separately. You have to have the lifestyle components in place. Otherwise, the supplement support is really not able to do its job. So we have a lot of topics to cover within blood sugar balance. And yeah, we're going to cover what we consider to be key for your education for today, but we'll answer some questions as well.
And then we will just cover what we can because the time and all that. And then I just wanted to say thank you to those of you that are donating for our monthly calls. We really, really appreciate that because it's what keeps us going. As you can see, we put a lot of free contents out there, but nothing is free, right? So I just want to take a moment and say thank you for those of you that have been doing that for us for years. I mean, some of you have been supporting us for years. So thank you for doing that. And so let's maybe start with a screen share then. Should we do that?
Yeah.
And then going, okay. Okay, good. So we will go into just a quick disclaimer. You know the drill, everyone. So this is information only, okay? And hopefully the information that will educate you. That's what we want to do because we want you to become the expert of yourself. So, and if you have further questions, set up sessions or, talk to your health practitioners about it. And, we wanted to just briefly go over how important this blood sugar levels are in our bodies. And so the blood sugar levels impact everything in your body, your entire body, mind, and spirit. And this is something we learned a long time ago, and we had major aha moments. So we wanted to kind of share that. And
because the thing about this topic with blood sugar, it's something that you have to understand for all of us. Blood sugar impacts everything in your entire body, mind system. Okay. So when we first started learning about this in our training to do this functional nutritional therapy work, it really hit us as a big aha moment that this was something that actually goes all the way up to what we would even call the spiritual level, the identity that we have there, because it affects us so globally throughout our entire system. So one of the keys that you have to know with blood sugar is that you have to be able to do your part with this. And that's one of the pieces that you can't let slide. Is blood sugar is so central to our health, our mental health, our physical health, our mind, body, spirit health, that this really is one of the biggest topics for us to talk about and consider. So with the dysregulation that we experience in our bodies, it starts with energy. Energy is one of the biggest ones, but it's also the integrity of our tissues. So every organ, every blood vessel in our body is impacted by what's happening with blood sugar levels, our hormonal balance, our brain health. We talked a little bit last month about brain health and the supplements that support that, but blood sugar levels are key. The brain is actually the biggest user of glucose in the body as far as the organs go. And so if our blood sugar regulation isn't working efficiently, or we're not putting in the right ingredients into our bodies to help balance it out, and that can't happen, what we end up with is all kinds of stress at a cellular level. We end up with what's called glycation, which is inflammatory effects that happen throughout our body. And then we also have these big swings in our energy output. Okay. So those are just some of the surface level details. They're big, but we need to be aware of these things from the beginning as we're having this conversation.
the alarming stats is what I wanted to start with today. The number of people living with diabetes is expected to be more than double globally, actually, by 2050. So, you can read this stat, but it just really surprised me that we may even have at least 1.3 billion people with diagnosed diabetes. But you have to remember, 1 in 5 people don't even know that they're diabetic. And there are a ton of skinny diabetes out there also. So please don't think that obesity equals diabetes. 40% of diabetics are actually skinny diabetics. So this is when you want to pay attention to the belly, belly fats and things. And I'll just read this. The diabetes was already a substantial concern in 2021, and it's set to become an even greater public health issue over the coming 3 decades with no effective mitigation strategy currently in place. And what I wanted to emphasize here is that during the COVID, the number kept getting worse also. And post-COVID, many people are extremely unhealthy right now. So let me just take a look at the next stats, and then we will get into other support that we wanted to share today. 93% of American adults are unhealthy. And then what happens in the United States starts to spill over to the rest of the world as well, right? So this came out, I believe it was in 2022, wasn't it? Yeah, it was 2022, everyone. The report came out. And what's important here is that the only 6.8% of American adults have optimal metabolic health. Okay. So when I read this, I realized that I could be one of those people in the 93 percentile that are unhealthy. And you almost want to assume that almost all of us could use some help. Okay, you might be working on it, you might be not so bad, but the fact is that we live in a very unhealthy society, and it's worth noting that the data precedes the COVID-19, because this study was done up to 2018 and it was published in 2022. So this doesn't even take it into consideration the issues of obesity, the diabetes, other health metabolic issues after COVID. Okay, so let's just keep in mind that this is speaking to all of us, including us. And I think my main goal with today's call is that, of course, you can wait to get your diagnosis. Okay. Of course, you could go to your doctor and then you get your yearly checkups, and they will test you on insulin resistance. However, these tests don't always give you where you're at until you are diagnosable, because they have a particular number that they wait to diagnose you till you're in the range. So you could be getting all kinds of testings. Okay. But for us, is that what we want to educate you on today is, why are you waiting until you're diagnosed to start taking care of yourself when you have so many signs and symptoms? The signs and symptoms, which we will go over today, are basically the language that the body speaks. And you want to be able to translate the language that the body is speaking to you every day, all day. Body isn't silent. Body is always whispering, sometimes screaming, sometimes banging pretty hard, but sometimes it's just like you really have to quiet down yourself in order to listen and hear. So that's what we're here to do, because we almost all fit in the 93 percentile of unhealthy. Okay. And we wanted to go over the lifestyle factors that can impact your blood sugar imbalance. And most of this, sedentary, right? Being sedentary impacts not only the blood sugar dysregulations, but impacts your hormones. And especially for postmenopause and menopausal women, it really messes us up with our estrogen. So, and an estrogen there's a direct correlation with the estrogen and the blood sugar dysregulations as well. Smoking, toxins. So toxins called obesogens. So if you've never heard of the word obesogens, I recommend you want to learn about what obesogens are. I've done courses on weight loss resistance course that I go deeply into details about the obesogens. But basically, it's our life. The new carpet that you just put in, your new rug that you bought, new paint that you put on your wall, the plastic items that came through all your foods that you eat, right? It's obesogens. Those are really hard. That's why having seasonal detoxifications programs like we will be doing in April We don't have the exact date yet, but we should have the date pretty soon. The metabolic cleanse that we will be doing as a group, really, really necessary. And I put malnourishment here because most of us are over consuming foods, but we're undernourished or malnourished, because that now we have to eat 5,000 plus calories in order to get the nourishments that you need per day that you could get you used to get in the 1930s and 40s and 50s. You have to eat over 5,000 calories per day.
Really
Okay.
quick, Masami, that's not to say you should eat 5,000 calories. It just means that it would require you to eat 5,000 calories worth of food in order to get your basic nutrient needs met through food that's available in our food supply today.
Right. And, you can look at all the other things, medications, by the time most people hit about 65 on average, people are taking at least about 5 pharmaceutical medications, and each medication has side effects, right? So we're just adding more and more and more. So that can definitely impact your blood sugar level as well. So now, and then EMFs too, we'll talk about a little bit about that a little bit later. And I'm going to hand it over to Chris, and we're going to go through 3 graphs that show you how the blood sugar changes over time if you are metabolically compromised,
Okay,
which is about 93% of the Americans. Yes.
right. And just keep in mind while we're talking about this, there's this saying that's worth repeating. You've probably heard us say it before, but it's that a stress reaction is a blood sugar reaction. Okay. A stress reaction is a blood sugar reaction. So any kind of stress that is happening on your body and your mind is also influencing the blood sugar levels in your blood vessels and in your cells. So these charts that we're going to look at, really all that you need to pay attention to here is the ranges. That's the key. But you can see that we have the range, which is what you get on a blood test on the left-hand side, and then we have the time of day. So on a normal blood sugar pattern, you can see there's this very smooth, undulating kind of curve. It lifts a little bit after waking in the morning. It starts to go up around mid-morning, comes down around lunchtime. You have some lunch, and then it gradually comes up again and then smooths out again into the evening when you would have a meal. And then it's going to rise up again after that, come down while you go to sleep, and so on. Okay, so it's a very smooth range. And you can see here it's between about 80 and 90, which is milligrams per deciliter of glucose in your blood. And that would be considered a healthy range. So this is going to lead to stable moods, quality sleep, your ability to get through your day, do all of your tasks, and still have plenty of energy left without feeling exhausted. Okay, so this is a normal range. This is actually very few of us these days. So let's look at the next one.
So, Chris, before we
Yeah.
go into it, this is when we started learning about the blood sugar dysregulations in our bodies, we had this major aha moment where we said, oh my gosh, this is spiritual. This is the spiritual practice that is happening. Because at that time, I was studying with a Zen teacher. And a Zen teacher would say to me, and I was learning Japanese style archery at that time as well through him. He would say that what you want to focus on, Masami, is the gentle ripples of the ocean waves, not the tsunami that rhymes with your name. Well, that I'm adding that part, but tsunami of the blood sugar. I mean, he didn't say blood sugar either, but the tsunami of your emotions. But I tried so hard, everyone. I tried every meditation. I've been to so many silent meditations. I studied with this hardcore Zen teacher who was the the Air Force person that in a high ranking, really hardcore. He never even cracked one smile in the years that I've known him. Okay. I went hardcore. And then I also went to the yoga side, energy medicine and everything, but I could not find this gentle waves in my life. I was a roller coaster wreck. Okay. So we're going to go into that. So as we go through this, please put it through your spiritual practice. Okay.
So the gentle waves that we saw in the last slide, that's what your body looks like when it has its nutrient and other needs met. Okay. You can see now what we've done is we're still in a range that would be considered normal on a blood test. So between 80 and 100 milligrams per deciliter of glucose in your blood. But now you can see that instead of having this nice, smooth, undulating wave, we're having spikes and drops. Okay. So this is the beginning of compromised blood sugar, still in the normal range, still not going to be diagnosed with anything, but you're experiencing these spikes of energy and dips of energy that make you start feeling like, I think I have a craving for sugar, or maybe for some kind of snacks in the afternoon or caffeine. And you're going to find that when you're getting closer toward lunchtime, when the meal times are approaching, that you start to really lose your focus, you lose your energy, you start to feel that hangry feeling starting to click in for a lot of us. And what we also see here is that your sleep starts to suffer as you get into this compromised blood sugar. So we're getting away now from the good signs of healthy digestion and absorption of nutrients, and we're starting to stretch the range of our blood sugar. And that's going to take us into the next pattern. So the next one we're going to look at is hypoglycemia. Okay, so hyper and hypoglycemia are both extremes of fluctuation. But now what you can see is instead of that 80 to 90 range or even 80 to 100 range, we're now swinging from 80 up to about 100 and then taking a big dip, maybe in this example here, all the way down to 45. Now, this kind of an extreme is usually what happens in more advanced kinds of situations. So we use the term hypoglycemia when we're talking about it pretty loosely, I would say. The medical literature these days is talking more about hypoglycemia as a clinical condition, and this happens to people that are more on the diabetic end of the spectrum that would have this kind of swing. So if you're having dips that are this severe, this means that you are most likely falling into that range where a doctor could diagnose you as having diabetic. You can be diagnosed as being diabetic. Okay. But the key here, it's similar to what we saw in the last pattern, is we're seeing spikes with severe dips, like dips that you cannot function. And you have to have something to stabilize and boost your blood sugar. And usually that ends up being sugary snacks. So the hyperglycemia, this is something that is much more associated with longer term kinds of symptoms. And it's becoming much more common today than at any other time in history, just like Masami started with some of those statistics. And this is where you start to basically flood your blood with too much sugar, which forces your body to release insulin. You may know insulin is the hormone or the transport molecule that helps to move the sugar out of your blood and into your cells. So when you have too much sugar in your blood, that's going to start leading to too much insulin in your blood, trying to get it out of the blood. It's trying to get the blood sugar down to normal again. And the problem with that is the longer that this goes on, the more you have high sugar and high insulin in your blood, the more you're going to have symptoms of inflammation and all kinds of body effects from that we've started to talk about: energy, sleep, emotional state, mental health. All of these things are going to start swinging as you have this happen. Insulin resistance itself is what happens when the cells of your body start actually rejecting the glucose that's being delivered by the insulin. Okay, so it's if you imagine a taxi, a little taxi called insulin, and its passenger is glucose, and it's delivering that taxi to the doorstep of each cell, the cells are going to start rejecting and resisting taking that passenger in because there's just too much. They don't have enough capacity to process it. So we see this kind of sign, this swing up to a very high spike. So now instead of spiking up to 100, we're spiking up way past 100. In this case, it's about 150 or even higher, followed by a big crash down below the normal 80 range, way down below that, followed by another spike, another crash. Your body cannot possibly function normally in this state. And this is where we see not only pre-diabetic, but full-blown type 2 diabetes and a whole range of other, now what you'll start hearing the term comorbidities start to creep in. So this is very serious.
So Chris, let's go into the next screen and then we will go over this a little bit more, everyone, in detail. Okay, so we're going to start with remember that the hypo, and then we'll go into hyper. Okay, so let's start with the hypoglycemia and then the common symptoms for this. We're not going to go into all of them, but you can kind of take a look at it: fatigue, insomnia, depression, infertility, slow metabolism, weight issues, endocrine, so hormone issues going to start to show up, other signs and symptoms. So remember, these are the language that your body is speaking. This is the language that the body is speaking. So you have to learn to start translating them before, so you're not just waiting for the blood test to show that you need to stop doing these things to yourself. Okay. And other signs are craving sweets. Chris has talked about a lot of this. Irritable if the meal is missed. So this is the hangry stage that the Chris was talking about. Jittery and shaky, easily upset, nervous. We have a friend that would say it's getting hangry out, if the meal's missed. So this is the stage that you're starting to go into big waves, and maybe not tsunami level yet, but if you're starting to see maybe blurred visions or eyesight's going, eyes are super sensitive, everyone. Eyes are such a key indicator. If your eyesights are changing rapidly or declining, or macular degenerations, age-related things, you have to pay attention to the hypoglycemia issues. And needing the coffee in the afternoon, I mean, that's a big, big no-no for us. Because if you have to have that in order to feel like you're energized or can get through the day, you're in a hypoglycemia. Also, drinking alcohol, because alcohol is sugar basically. So you want and crave not just sweets, but you want and crave alcohol in between meals and things like that, or you have to have that little bit of that wine. You are already in a hypoglycemic level. Do you need to add anything, Chris, here before we
No,
go
let's go
into?
to the next one.
Yeah. So this is a really good list that we came up with for hypoglycemia behaviors, because sometimes the behaviors are a little bit easier for us to pay attention to as one of the body's language that body speaks. So use of high glycemic snacks. So you need the sugary things in between. Chronic snacking is a big one, like eat, snack, eat, snack, eat, snack model. Use of caffeine, nicotine to suppress cravings, eating sweets instead of meals, lack of fat and protein and fiber in meals, easily irritated and hangry, we've already talked about, and highly fluctuating energy. This is a really key, that you may start out with almost no energy in the morning, and then you eat something, it may come up a little bit, but then there's this dip in the afternoon. So pay attention to about 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, what's happening to your energy. And then we're going to go into the hyperglycemia that we Chris started talking about, and then we will go into the hyperglycemia's common symptoms. Chris, you want to go over a little bit of that?
I wanted to just touch on one quick thing, which is alcohol again, or it could be nicotine, sugar as well, but they all metabolize like sugar in your blood, in your body. The alcohol cravings are something that your body, it's calling for energy. And alcohol has this effect where energy, you get a little hit of energy because it metabolizes like sugar, but it's also something that your body, it's stressed. So it feels like it needs a little bit of a dialing down of the stress. And alcohol gives you that sensation of a little bit of relief. You kind of feel your body relaxing. And so you get a sense of relief, a sense of energy boost, and it's the wrong response to those signals, because what your body is really calling for is quality energy that can sustain, and then also rest and relaxation, not just suppressing that feeling of being stressed. So let's did you want to say something, and then we'll touch on the hyperglycemia?
Yeah, I think let's just pause for a moment before we go into the whole list of hyperglycemia's common signs. So we really wanted to impress upon you that if you have been trying to work on your breathing techniques, and that you have been trying to meditate in the morning, and you are doing the best you can, journaling, communicating with your guides, and communicating with your intuition, tapping into all these things, and you're getting blocked, okay? Or you feel like the swings, you're still experiencing the swings throughout the day. It's really important that you take care of your blood sugar, because that is the key to everything. You are this ocean of blood inside you. And if you've ever tasted your own blood, you know it tastes like an ocean. Okay. It's a very salty substance that mimics the ocean. So we have to make sure that your inner ocean is taken care of, and it's balanced, and it's not in this tsunami waves. That is this nice ripples. So you can begin to notice little things are happening. You can address it before it becomes the crazy waves that's going to just suck you and drain you and injure you. Okay. And I think it's important that I started out telling you that this eclipse season it started out very subtle at that level of a very subtle lunar eclipse. But the more subtle the lunar eclipse is, the deeper it penetrates into you. Okay. So we're in this time period for the next month or so. We're going to be experiencing a lot of subtle, but can turn into major fluctuations in us. So I'm telling this to myself, for next month or so, I have to be even more careful about how I take care of my blood sugar level. And I'm one of those people that have a very high level metabolism. So I need to pay attention to the adequate amount of protein and fats. And Chris and I were just talking about this yesterday, how much we are actually needing protein and fats right now, especially since the shadow period of the eclipse season started. We're in the wormhole already, right? Like 2 weeks prior to the eclipse starting, and we're fully in eclipse right now. So make sure that you're upping some of your dense nutrient foods like protein and fats, so that can bring you back down to this nice wave. So you're not going up and down like that. And then if I did go up there, which I did in the beginning of this call, I'm able to bring it back down. I'm able to come back and focus on what it is right here that I need to do. Okay, so I just wanted to share that. Chris, you have anything else to add? If not, I'll share the screen again.
Let's go ahead.
Thanks for letting me pause and share that. Okay, so then let's go into
So with
the
hyperglycemia, let me just say one quick thing on this one before we get into the details, is that remember here that this is chronic. Okay, when you start seeing these kinds of conditions, this is happening chronically, meaning you've had this building up over time. This doesn't just, you don't just wake up one day and suddenly have hyperglycemia or hypoglycemia for that matter. You have been building these conditions through a combination of lifestyle, what happens every day in your life, your mindset, how you're looking at things, your stress levels, your environment, all of that is playing together. Okay. So we have to be aware that these are things that have built up over time. So just looking at this, fatigue, we already talked about some of this. Fatigue and lethargy, you're just losing your energy and focus. Brain fog is very common, difficulty concentrating. In fact, type 3 diabetes is the name that's given to Alzheimer's disease, sorry. Type 3 diabetes, that means it's a blood sugar disease. So you have to bear that in mind. It affects our brain like we talked about at the beginning. If you're having trouble losing weight, especially in the midsection, joint issues, depression and mood disorders start to become much more common in the presence of hyperglycemia, as well as endocrine issues with fertility, thyroid, other hormones that are happening. You'll start noticing that your body is slower to heal itself, and you start to age faster and faster sooner than you would if you were in a healthy state with your blood sugar level. And we mentioned the difficulty concentrating as well as memory issues, which are tied back to the cognitive decline that happens as a result of these imbalances. And then Masami mentioned on the last one, macular degeneration. We see that continuing with hyperglycemia, with other eyesight issues starting to deteriorate. So if we move to the other side, there's a whole range of these. And this is why we were saying at the beginning, we have to be selective because there's so much that we can talk about here. But the fatigue after meals is something that you see with hyperglycemia regularly, sweet cravings consistently, constantly, weight gain that you can't lose. If you feel like you have to have dessert after you eat a meal, or if you just chronically are not sleeping well, again, the mental health issues with anxiety and depression in particular, these all go together with poor blood sugar regulation. Frequent thirst and the urge to urinate, those are more advanced diabetic type of symptoms. And when we get to PCOS, the polycystic ovary syndrome, this is something that many women these days and younger women are starting to experience. And what we're also seeing is that with PCOS, 30 to 40% of those cases are also insulin resistant, which means they have gone advanced into their dysregulation of blood sugar. So this is repeating some of the things I already mentioned about hormones. We also have high blood pressure, high fatty molecules, triglycerides in the blood that your body can't process. And then a key is skin issues. And Masami is going to talk about that in a moment.
Okay, good. Thank you. And this is very much similar. You know, what causes this? So we're not going to go into it because we've already talked about the lack of movements and overeating. I think there's the areas that we really need to look at. It's the chronic snacking is a big issue, but also it's not in here, but eating late, which I will mention a little bit later, but eating late can really be hard on your blood sugar regulations as well. And so skin thing I wanted to mention here is something that really is a great way to understand if you are having some insulin issues and you're having blood sugar dysregulations. So here, I'm just going to read the bolded part here, but the skin manifestations of insulin resistance offer a reliable, straightforward, and real-time way to detect insulin resistance. And I cited it here, so if you want to read up on it, you can. But some of these, little bit difficult technical words are basically skin issues like a skin tag and acne and skin pigmentations and things like that. So, but I wanted to mention a little bit about the acne. So, acne is considered to be, especially for adult acne, but teenagers as well, we're seeing it as basically it's like a form of diabetes. It's diabetes of the skin, is what acne is called. And these are some of the warning signs of the skin issues. And one of the things that really happens with the skin issues is that if you've had eating disorders when you're younger, and eating disorders that went on for decades, like for me, my case, it went on for about 15 years, right? So it really impacted my skin and my skin health. It's taken me a long time to turn my skin around, which I have been able to do quite a bit, but I have to watch it because anytime my blood sugar gets dysregulated, I can see things showing up on my skin. So, really eating disorder is a big, big topic, and I'm not going to go into it necessarily today, but having adequate stomach acid is very important. Zinc is important. Eating disorders have been directly connected to lack of zinc in your body. So I was never able to fully turn my eating disorder issues until I started to take care of my zinc levels. I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And low zinc will always show up on your skin issues. If you don't digest protein well and you have a low zinc levels, you're going to see a lot of these skin issues here. Skin tag is a very, very common thing we see, but also the discoloration, small bumps, like a reddish bumps, itchy bumps, could be something that you put cortisol cream on it. But basically, it's starting to show that you have some insulin resistance starting to show up. And this information actually comes from American Academy of Dermatology. So you can also go into deeper understanding of why skin conditions are happening. It's not just, removing dairy. It's not just about removing foods like gluten, although those things are very important. But if something is showing up in your skin, there's a sign inside you that the blood is dysregulated. Okay, blood sugar is dysregulated. And so I wanted to give you a couple of solutions for this. Obviously, you want to work on your lifestyles, but the Complete Care Plus spray from Zorex is a really good spray for any age group to spray it directly onto your skin issues. But please know that this is still superficial level that we're working on. We have to work it from the inside out. And also red and blue light masks. I have one that it can go from red and blue with the one mask, and it's flexible. So you can place it on your belly. You can place it on your skin, like in your arms or your thighs. You can wrap it around. So that's what I use for the red and blue light mask. And if any of you are interested in learning more about the mask that I use, I'm not going to go into huge details here, but you can always reach out to me because the red light therapy is most important in terms of treating your skin conditions, but also blue light is extremely important in terms of supporting deep infections. If you have sinus infections, it's helped me so much by using the blue and red both. So I wanted to mention that. And Chris, I know you started using the red light with me because anything I do, he has to try it too. And
Yeah,
the first
I
use he said to me, "Oh my gosh, this thing works."
Yeah,
So
it really does. I mean, I'm both a guinea pig and then also an unwitting beneficiary of a lot of what Masami experiments with because she tries it out, and then of course I end up trying it out too as a result. And these red and blue light masks, I wasn't expecting to like it myself, to be honest, but I really have enjoyed using it. And I notice even just like Masami said, even after the very first time that I put it on and I did just a regular 10-minute session with it, I could tell a difference in the vibrance of my skin because it's not only increasing blood flow and helping with collagen production in the skin, but it's also fighting against pathogens in the skin. And so I could see that, and the effects of that lasted, and they do last for days at a time. And when you build up on that, you see continued improvement in your skin health. So it's really
right.
important. Yeah.
Right. And then we lose about 1 to 2% of collagen since you're about age 20, 22. Okay. So we've been losing collagen every decade. Okay. Every year we're losing some of it. So you want to stop that from getting any further so you don't have these droopy skins, right? So the red light is going to be important. And I will talk a little bit more about the red light a little later here.
And
And
again,
so
these are just really quick. Those are topical supports for skin. And what we're going to talk about moving forward here is more specific to blood sugar support throughout the whole system of the body.
Yeah, but the red light actually helps with your blood sugar. So that's why we're going to come back around to it. And the particular mask, just one more side note, is that it's a flexible mask. That's why you can put it into different targeted areas of the body. I used to use those red light panels, and I just did not like those because I have to stand in front of it. But with the mask like this, you can wrap it on your face, you can wrap it on the part of the legs or something, and you can move around, you can do other things. I just did not enjoy having to stand there for 10 to 15 minutes. And I tried getting a smaller one right next to my computer, but then I couldn't do any work. So I have completely switched it to the mask. Okay, so we're going to give you some solutions, but this won't surprise you, any of you, is it's always north to south. Okay, so those of you that are new to our work, please go and watch our February call that we did, where we go deeply into details about the north to south. That our bodies work from top to bottom, north to south. And so many people are going to see doctors because they have irritable bowel syndrome, maybe SIBO, maybe they have issues in their skin, and they're addressing all these other symptoms, but they're not addressing the north to south. So because of the time, we're not going to go into north to south conversations today, but please do review the call that we did last month. And this was something that we talked about then too, north to south, chewing your liquids and drink your solids. We must chew our foods really a lot, okay? Each bite, minimum of 15 times. Bite your food and chew at least 15. If you could get up to 30, that'll be awesome, okay? So the first one, this won't surprise you either. If you've been, following our work, we'll never stop talking about the hydrochloric acid. Priority number one, you have to support the stomach, so that when you support the stomach, you can support the rest of your body, north to south. So once again, I'm going to refer this going back to that call that we did last month, and we'll include the link with the recording of today's recording as well, so you can go back and watch it. But you want to take 1 to 2 capsules in the middle of the meal for some of you. But for sensitive people like us, I usually just take 1 capsule a little bit after I've had my meal, about 10 minutes to 20 minutes after I've had my meal. And that helps us to break down all the foods you're eating so we can start to get nourished again. All right. And the priority number 2 is to honor the circadian rhythm and the lunar rhythm. Timing of when you are eating really, really matters. And so I see, and I work with clients that will say, I've been doing an intermittent fasting, and they will tell me, I'm just not hungry till about noontime or 11 o'clock in the morning, or even 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I don't eat anything. So I am doing intermittent fasting. Well, not so fast, right? That is not an intermittent fasting. Actually, according to what we understand, the blood sugar dysregulation is that is a sign that you are in a hypoglycemic state. Okay, that is not intermittent fasting. So the best way to do intermittent fasting, which I will talk a little bit more in my moon course that I'm doing in April, but it's basically you have to honor the cycles of the lunar and the solar, and intermittent fasting changes throughout the month. But if you're eating your largest meal at dinner, that is not an intermittent fasting, and that can be extremely hard on your entire system. So the rule of thumb is to eat the largest meal at lunch. And I also want to make sure that we are honoring the moon monthly rhythms. We have moon cycles. There's time during the monthly rhythms that you have more of a spike of your glucose level. You can actually have insulin dysregulations more at a certain time of the moon cycles. So knowing that, start with make sure you're waking up to see the sunlight, and then making sure that you are going to bed at a reasonable time. I always tell all my clients, go to bed today. Please stop going to bed tomorrow. Okay. That's a number 1 rule. And I will go into much more details about the monthly and the moon rhythms on the course that I'm teaching, Moon Wisdom in Menopause course, the masterclass that I'm teaching on April 13th. And I know some of you have signed up, so I will go into much more details about that. But let's honor the priority number 2. And the red light therapy reduces blood glucose levels and improves glucose metabolism. So this was such an exciting study that just got published in February, so last month of this year. So new research shows that the red light therapy reduces blood sugar by almost 30% in healthy adults. The researchers found that just 15 minutes of exposure to bare skin, that's the key, everyone, bare skin, was enough to elicit benefits. So, it could be your face in the morning, it could be your arms, it could be your legs, maybe, show your belly area and expose your body to 10 to 15 minutes. This study was done for 15 minutes, but like the masks that we use, it's set for 10-minute cycles. So we only do 10 minutes. And that's even really helpful at night. When we do the red masks at night, we sleep so much better and our kind of a nighttime snacky hunger goes away. So this research was done through the United Kingdom. So it was the University of London that did this study. And like I said, it was February 20th in the Journal of Biophotonics. So if you want to look up Journal of Biophotonics, you can learn a little bit more about this. And their conclusion is that this could be a groundbreaking work for a new therapy to support people with type 2 diabetes. And I assume type 1 will be benefiting from that as well. And so this is kind of the summary of the study is the red light is absorbed by mitochondria and helps them produce more energy. As you know, the mitochondria is your energy center, right? Storage bin for your energy. So important. If mitochondria stops working, you will not be on this earth no more than a split second. So it's so important that we support the mitochondria. But how do we support the mitochondria? Expose yourself to sunset and sunrise. Mitochondria regulate metabolism, but solar light influences its rate. Okay. And this is why it's not just the sunlight, but the moonlight, which is also really helpful for mitochondria health as well. And then I will go into that a little bit more in detail during that masterclass. But priority number 3, this is the key. So have a sip of water, everyone. This is when it gets a little bit dense. Okay. So priority number 3, I will hand it over to Chris. And we call this the taking good care of your pals. Okay.
All right. We'll try to keep it as not dense as possible, but I'll just give you a little overview of each of these organ systems and glands that are responsible for managing and balancing our blood sugar. So if you can remember pals, you can remember which of these things we're talking about: pancreas, adrenals, and liver. And so very briefly, the pancreas is mainly a digestive organ, but it's also an endocrine gland. And it's only 1 to 2% of the cells of the pancreas that actually produce insulin and another hormone that's called glucagon that helps to regulate blood sugar levels. It's a very gentle hormone for that. And so what happens is when we're spiking our blood sugar all the time, or it's dipping all the time, and we're having to have these emergency measures taken inside of our bodies, the pancreas gets very, very stressed out. And those 1 to 2% of its cells, they're called beta cells, they start to just not function as well. And eventually they can switch off. And that's where you start getting into type 2 diabetes, where you don't produce either enough insulin or insulin at all. And so the pancreas is a key part of this. The adrenals, with the adrenals, we have to remember that not only are they like our backup generator, that's one way to think of them, is the backup energy for our bodies. They produce a lot of the stress hormones that tell our cells, all right, dump whatever you have in storage in sugar into the blood so that that energy is available for emergencies. That's what our stress hormones are really about. The problem is most of us are in chronic stress. So we're stressed out all the time, mentally, physically, emotionally, worries about the past, anxious about the future. All of those things spike our blood sugar. And every time that happens, the adrenal glands are getting more and more stressed out. So you've probably heard about adrenal fatigue or adrenal insufficiency, adrenal exhaustion. Those all mean the same thing. And that's when these adrenal glands start to just wear out, like I mentioned with the pancreas. They stop producing as much. You stop regulating your stress reaction as much, and you end up in this very, very low energy fatigue state. And especially as we get older, and for women in particular, the adrenal glands pick up the sex hormone production, largely post-menopause. And for men even in the mid 40s and on, we start to produce less of our sex hormones from our sex organs and more from the adrenal glands. And so the adrenals are taking this double duty of trying to balance stress and our sex hormone functions. And if it's a matter of survival in our bodies, you can probably see that it's going to be the stress functions that are going to get the upper hand. So we're always regulating our blood sugar, trying to stay alive, but these poor little guys, the adrenal glands, are getting stressed out to the point that they can barely cope with it. And then that brings us to the liver. And the liver does over 500 functions in the body, and so many of them have to do with healthy blood regulation, including filtration of the blood, but also a lot of the hormonal aspects of blood regulation, taking apart the hormones that don't need to be active anymore and turning them off, as well as processing things like toxins and alcohol and sugars. It's really a vital part. So when our liver starts to become congested due to toxification, it slows down these 500 plus functions. And guess what? It's called the liver because it's the thing that helps us to live. That's really what the name is. It's not a joke. That's how the name came about. And so when we lose our 500 plus functions that it does, or they are compromised, we're just not able to sustain health in our bodies. So these three pals put together are vitally important, and we can help all of them by balancing our blood sugar on the input side. Okay, what we put into our bodies in relation to what's happening outside of our bodies. Okay, it's that whole equation, but we have a lot of say about the drink and the food that we put into our mouths, which will influence all of these organs. Okay,
And then
so
we will go, we will support these organs, the PALs, during our metabolic cleanse that we'll be doing as a group in April. So stay tuned to that. And I'm looking at the time, Chris, so let's just kind of go through them a little bit faster. So when the challenges starts to happen in the pancreas, you will be experiencing some of these emotions. And the vicious circle is definitely there. So if you're noticing the excessiveness of anything, thinking, worrying, ruminating, pensiveness, and you're excessively obsessing about certain things, okay, and then you're just riddled with guilt and resentment, a lot of the obsessiveness comes from tired out. Just the pancreas is saying, please help us because we can't do this anymore. So you could be working on these emotions. You could be doing meditations. You could be working with specialists on these. But if you don't support the pancreas at the same time, it just creates this vicious circle. So we wanted to make sure that we went over that quickly. And then our favorite to supporting the pancreas is definitely the 8 times or 8x pancreatin, or in Zorex, they call it 8x pancreatin is how they say it. But I'm just going to stick with 8 times pancreatin. That's how I read it. And this is really important. What makes this product different than most proteolytic enzymes is that the high level of pancreatin that is in there, and most especially the high level of chymotrypsin. And Chris, maybe you could say a little bit briefly about what chymotrypsin and why that is so important. And we are so happy that this product has high levels of that.
and we did cover this in our last month call as well, so you can go back and revisit it. But chymotrypsin is a proteolytic enzyme, and it's a very powerful one. So it helps to break down proteins in the body. Now, it's not, you can use it as a digestive enzyme, but that's not really the best use of it. The best use of it is to take this product on an empty stomach so that what proteins it's digesting are the ones that aren't actually getting digested by the digestive system enough, and those build up in our tissues and they start to create inflammation and other issues that lead to this blood sugar dysregulation as well. Inflammation itself is a dysregulation of the blood sugar. So that's where the chymotrypsin helps, cleans it out. It's like running a vacuum, or it's a street sweeper is how I think of it. Those machines that go down and clean up all the debris. So it's a very, very powerful digestive enzyme to help with that.
We like actually taking one capsule before we go to bed, like about 45 minutes before we go to bed, so that during the night, our bodies can be cleaned out by these street sweepers of the excess inflammation, excess protein that you didn't digest, or some other inflammatory conditions in your body that this proteolytic enzymes can go in there and clean it out. So we like to use it not as a digestive enzymes, to be honest. And it helps a lot with the surgeries. If you have surgeries coming up, take 8 times pancreatin, and post-surgery as well. You'll heal so fast that your doctor will be surprised at how quickly you healed, because that's what this particular supplement helps with. Isn't just to digest the foods, but to lower the inflammation, to support with the free radicals, to get, and it helps with the herpes, helps with systemic mucus, and actually to clear out some parasites as well. So if you're doing some parasite protocols, I would definitely take this. And then it's super helpful for healing the lining of your entire basically tube from the mouth to the anus. And I wrote this here, but when you help the digestion take the burden off of the overworked pancreas, I'm sorry, digestion takes the burden off of the overworked pancreas, because pancreas' job isn't just to produce insulin and glucagon, okay? But it's doing so many other things, and we need to support the pancreas' job to do other things, not just get bombarded by the insulin and the glucagon. Is that good, Chris? Should we move to the next one?
Let's move on. Yep.
Okay. So priority number 4, everyone. So number 1 was the stomach acid. Number 2 was living and honoring the circadian rhythm and the circalunar, so the lunar cycles. Number 3 was the taking care of your pancreas, because we're starting with the PAL. So, but we wanted to make sure that we touched upon the priority number 4, which is to support your magnesium. So if you have a blood sugar balance issues, you are going to be using up magnesium left and right. I think, Chris, you remember like a 1 molecule of the sugar requires 6 molecules of the
Yeah,
magnesium.
it's
Right?
at the atomic level, it's like one glucose molecule requires 28 to 56 magnesium atoms in order to metabolize it. So there's a burn rate that's associated with reducing your blood sugar levels that uses up magnesium. And that's something you can also apply to stress, like we started out with. Stress is a blood sugar reaction. Stress spikes your blood sugar. So you have to have magnesium as a part of your regular routine in order to keep balanced blood sugar levels throughout the day and over time. It's a very, very important aspect.
Right. And then we have a more that we want to share, everyone, but I wanted to just quickly share a screen of our website, because that's where you can find much more information about magnesium. We're not going to go into it in crazy details today. So this is masamicovey.com. If you go to the store, you can get PDF and a video that the Chris created. So if you go down to the store and go down to this magnesium trio right here, the reason is we have so many forms of magnesiums, and so many of us are just taking one form of magnesium, but they work on many, many different things. So we created the trio that you can buy all 3 and you rotate. So a lot of my clients, I say to them every 2 days, or some of you are doing every other day, or some of you are reading the PDF and making decisions when to do the glycerophosphate, when to do the taurinate, when to do orotate. And so you can watch the video. Chris created a nice video about what magnesiums are, and then what are some of the forms that we recommend. And he created the magnesium, many forms of magnesium. This is a 4-page PDF that he created so that you can learn about what magnesiums are out there. And I think, Chris, you introduced 4 different kinds of magnesium in here. So please take advantage of this. I think many of you have already downloaded it. So maybe go back to your download folder and see what you can find there. So that's where, if you go to the store, you'll be able to find information here. Okay. And we've done lots of videos on, like, if you click on these kind of things, like a bundle, we have explanation here, and some of them have videos in there. So just go visit our website, because we'll keep putting more things up there. We have a resources page. You can go to the videos and you can watch the last month's webinar. This is this month one, which is not up yet, obviously, but it'll be up there. So we're just kind of adding things into that. And if you need to learn how to order supplements, go to the supplement page. It's for how to order the full script, the Zorex. And if you live in the UK, Canada, it's all here. And if you get confused, you can always email us, okay? And we will help you with that. So that's what I wanted to share here. And then let me share the different screen so we can go to the next one.
So the slide, we're going to talk about some of the signs of magnesium deficiency. And it's, we mentioned a lot of these as we went along, but magnesium, as we said, it gets burned up very quickly when you are experiencing especially hyperglycemia, high levels of glucose in your blood. So check yourself as I go through this list: muscle pain and muscle spasm, poor sleep and sleepiness, fatigue and weakness. We already know it's blood sugar dysregulation, constipation, heart issues. Okay, we might have irregular heartbeats is one that you notice with that. High blood pressure, migraine headaches or other kinds of headaches, bone issues, especially osteoporosis, osteopenia, asthma, mental health conditions, so anxiety, depression, mood disorders, racing mind. So if you just can't seem to feel that calmness inside, numbness and tingling. So these are all factors that can relate to, it's going to be blood sugar, but these are specifically pointing toward a magnesium deficiency in relation to that blood sugar regulation.
So then I just wanted to quickly go over, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but the energy and the personality and the quality of magnesium. I have done a call on this several times, so maybe some of you have seen this. But when I started to really tune in intuitively to magnesium, these are some of the things that came up. These are some of the research that I have done. When you don't have magnesium, adequate magnesium, you're going to feel the lack of strength in you. But if you have plenty of magnesium in you, you will feel more flexible with your mind. You'll feel stronger inside. You can find a quiet strength inside you. So there are a lot of things that magnesium give us. You'll feel fearless about life. So if you're fearful of aging, fearful of getting out there, fearful of putting yourself out there, you've got to look at, am I having adequate magnesium? And the answer for most of us is no. And I just want to give you a heads up that the magnesium glycerophosphate is the form that if you're very sensitive to getting loose stools, if you take too much magnesium, glycerophosphate is the form that you want to go with because it has the highest tolerance for absorptions and it will not loosen your stools. So that's just a little side note. Okay, and we wanted to go to support your adrenals. So this is a new supplement that we haven't really talked about in publicly, but we have been taking this and we love it. The reason why we love the AD complex, it's the adrenal complex, is that this helps with the glands themselves and they don't come with a bunch of adaptogens. I know the adaptogens are really, really popular. You know, I'm Ayurvedically trained. I'm very much aware of ashwagandha and rhodiola and so on and so forth. I'm very much aware of that. But when they are just randomly mixed into your adrenal supplements, you may not be needing that, or you may be artificially creating more energy. And what we're interested in is not artificial energy, but healing your adrenal glands that have been struggling for decades and decades and decades. And I have yet to meet a person, including myself, that have happy adrenal glands. So we're more interested in building and supporting the adrenal glands. And that's why we take the AD complex. And you could consider how to take it 1 to 2 capsules in the AM, 1 to 2 at noon. So if you're experiencing a lot of this, like a dip, energetic dip, hypoglycemic signs, hyperglycemic signs, you want to definitely start adding the AD complex. Okay. And then the GB Complete, which we've already talked about in the February call, but GB Complete isn't just for gallbladder, it's also for your liver as well. And what I love about the GB complex is that it uses artichoke, because artichoke has been used for biliary stasis and biliary stagnations and thick bile and gallstones and things like that since Roman times. And that's why I switched over to this one, because I used to use the one that had a lot of like a beet-based things, but the beets can be a little bit tough because here you can see, but it was selected over beet not only for its ability to address biliary problems, but because it did not contain oxalate, which can be a problem for many patients, clients, especially those with autoimmune problems. And I was diagnosed with MS, right? So I have autoimmune condition that I need to always pay attention to. Once you have one autoimmune diagnosis, you can have multiple other autoimmune conditions that can show up as thyroid issues and so on. So I am supporting my adrenals so that I can support my thyroid as well. Today, we didn't include the thyroid product, but I am actually taking thyroid support as well, which is just the thyroid glands. I'm not doing thyroid medications. I'm not doing anything to hyper focus on the thyroid, but I'm taking thyroid glands as well now, because those are sisters. The adrenals are the older sisters. The thyroid is the younger sister. If your adrenals are exhausted, your thyroid is going to eventually get exhausted. So that the PAL, they all have to all work together, pancreas, adrenals, and liver. Then you can begin to address your thyroid. Okay. So I hope I didn't confuse you all of it, but there's so much more to say and we have so many more notes, but we're going to wrap up here soon, is the balancing the blood sugar in the brain function so you don't have the brain fog, so you don't have Alzheimer's. Women are much more prone to being diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's as we go into post-menopause, longer and longer that we're in a post-menopause. Us women are getting diagnosed with brain issues much more than men. And I do believe that that's hugely to do with our fluctuation of the estrogen and progesterone, and especially decline in progesterone, but also this blood sugar issues. And why are women struggling with the blood sugar issues much more as we get older? It's because our adrenals are so exhausted, and your adrenals have to take the charge of still producing your progesterone and still balancing all your other 50 other hormones. I mean, it's not all adrenals' job. Adrenals do produce multiple other hormones as well, besides sex hormones. So CGF, our go-to. Why do we like CGF? We talked about CGF on a February call, so please do review that. What's in it? What amazing gland supports are in there. But I've listed what benefits, that you will receive from taking CGF, and what we are seeing, Chris and I are seeing. It's for hypoglycemia. It's for hyperglycemia. And you can use it in conjunction with the berberine HCl. We're not going to go into berberine today, but I'm sure many of you know the berberine has been shown to be as effective as taking metformin. So that will be your type 2 diabetes medications. So you can look into berberine HCl as well. Insulin resistance, diabetes, high triglycerides, high blood pressure, weight loss, help regulate homocysteine, better sleep. We all could use better sleep, especially during this next month or so. Anxiety, cuts the cravings. So whenever I have the nighttime cravings, I just go and take one capsule. And within 5 minutes, I'm like, yeah, I've forgotten about my cravings. So this is a really comprehensive, this is like a multivitamin for us that we take. Okay.
It's more like a multi-system support rather than thinking of it as a multivitamin. You'll see
Right.
CGF. We could recommend this on every one of these calls that we do for just about anything because it's that supportive for the whole body.
And we're going to end it with this quote. We have been to the moon. We have charted the depths of the ocean and the heart of the atom. But we have a fear of looking inward to ourselves because we sense that is where all the contradictions flow together. And this is why Chris and I love diving into our inner selves, because trust us when we say we've done so much work in the spiritual realm. I was an energy medicine practitioner for a long time. I'm a yoga therapist. I worked on breathing techniques. I did everything in my power to try to balance my tsunami waves that were happening inside me. But I needed to have a big wake up call. And I had two major wake up calls that woke me up to discovering my inward life, especially the blood sugar. One was that I was diagnosed with MS and I couldn't walk anymore. I was in severe pain that I did not sleep through the night for years. For years, I would wake Chris up at 4 a.m. to have him work on me. I would wake up at 1 a.m. and go hang on a upside down, spine extension machines. I mean, I was doing everything in my power, but I did not look at my blood sugar. And then a year later, I got hit by an armored truck that totaled my car and reversed my neck and curvature up completely opposite direction. And that made me not sleep again for years again. So until I addressed my blood sugar, I was chasing after my symptoms after symptoms. And I did everything I could except to take care of my lifestyle. So this is why we're passionate about talking about this. So I'm sure there's some questions, comments. Today I was actually going to demonstrate this, and I'm still getting yes on it, but I need a brave soul that wants to demonstrate with me. And I'm looking for, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just before you do that, I'd like to do this just as a regular thing that we do on these calls. Excuse me, is if you could write down what you gained most in the chat, that's really helpful for us so that we know that we're reaching you and that you are gaining something from these calls, and that it also gives us an idea about how to fine tune them. So if you could just take just a few seconds, write a sentence or two, and let us know what was beneficial, what did you learn, what was an aha moment if you had one. That's all useful. Okay, so Masami, back to you.
Yeah. So, and I actually, don't do this too often, but I would love for you to read some of the testimonials that are coming in, because we get testimonials weekly. So we've been updating our testimonial page. And there was this one that came in, and maybe Chris, you can share the screen of that testimonial. But it was really, really important that I want to take a moment and share this. And I know some of you will have to drop off the call because we're going a little bit longer, and I have an interview in about a half an hour, so I need to get ready for that too. But I wanted to share the testimonial that came in. So if you could scroll down to this client that I started working with, you can read that part too. It's this one that Warren's. Yeah. Let's share that Warren's one just briefly here. So we have not been working together, not even literally a month, and not even a month. And I received this testimonial, and, I was just like tears in my eyes, and I wanted to share it because it really summarizes a lot. And I don't even know where a testimonial page is, to be honest, in my website. Oh, it's in the front home page. So,
If you're looking for it, just hover over the About section and you'll see the testimonials drop down.
okay. So let me just quickly go over this because this person really pointed out a lot of things that I wanted to share with you today. So I have been on a spiritual journey since the mid 1970s. Around 6 months ago, I emerged into the light after going through a long, multi-decade dark tunnel toward the light. Not only was I free and the unbound witness of my life, but my life's actual circumstances, financial, interpersonal, etc., through which I had struggled for decades, had magically transformed in the twinkle of an eye. Ironically, however, at that very moment of my salvation, I was increasingly experiencing the physical symptoms of aging. I thought to myself, have I arrived at my time of rebirth, only to be reminded that I have a limited time to live a timeless existence? And I want to tell you, this person's age is 72. Okay, so you can read this, but basically, I think the key here is that he followed my recommendations precisely. And it really, it was an honor for me that he followed it down to the T, because I started super slow with him, mainly with my February call recommendations of the supplements. And I had him watch that also. And basically within 3 weeks, he has substantial flexibility and limberness. I mean, he says it only about a week. Says, although I have been following her recommendations for only about a week, I'm astounded at the results so far. He has more energy, clear dietary game plan that he can follow, and I have no indigestion associated with my meals. My attention is less drawn to my cardio functioning, but I sense that it is more coherent and then less prone to irregular occurrences. He was having heart issues, just so you know. I have no indigestion. I read that. I have the belief, even certainty, that I don't have to experience the normal physical manifestations of getting older, nor the contrast with my newfound spiritual and situational freedom. So, this experience is substantiating the vitality of Masami's philosophy that the spiritual and mental are not two separate paths or pursuits, but the inseparable two sides of the same coin. So I just wanted to share that. I know it went a little bit longer in sharing that, but I really want to emphasize that we are not just focusing on a physiology. This is a spiritual road. This is a spiritual practice. And I'm honored to share that. So please go and read some of them. I've been getting some really awesome, feedbacks from people. So that's what I wanted to share. And then I don't remember what else were we going to share before I ended up going there. Sorry, Chris.
Well, why don't we just take a couple of questions? First, we had a couple of questions about more information or wanting more information about the red and blue light masks. And so
you can email me at through the website, or just email me, just reply to the email that you received this morning with the reminder of the Zoom link and everything. You can just reply to that, and then I will be more than happy to take you through. And then if you do purchase the mask, I actually do 101 and go over how to use the mask, why to use it on a Zoom call. So I'm doing that with people that are purchasing the mask. So just reach out to me and then we'll go through there. Okay. And then don't forget, everyone, I have the not moon call, but the master course that I'm teaching, and it's on the homepage if you scroll down. And I'm sorry I didn't show that, but I wanted to make sure that I invite you to join me on the Moon Wisdom and Menopause Masterclass that I'm going to be going through. And I wanted to see if I could, I don't know, do we have time to be doing volunteer today?
I
Probably
don't think
not.
so. I think we should probably just take a couple more questions that are about the call today. One of them was for the CGF. So the recommendation is to take 12 capsules per day. Can we take less than that for it to be effective? And actually, the
So
one,
hold on a sec, Chris.
yeah,
We went over that very, very clearly in the previous call in February, and where that is not what I recommended, and that is the manufacturer's recommendations for sensitive people. Usually 2 to 3 per day is enough. Okay. For me, I take about 2. Chris, I think you take about 3.
I take about 4 per day.
Okay. And you can take them between the meals, but start with maybe a little bit of food in your system. Okay. And you can take it mid-morning, maybe, after you've had your breakfast, and then take it a little bit after your lunch. So your food is still in your stomach. That's a really good time to take one each. But sometimes if I'm getting the cravings at night, I would take one more again, even after dinner. Okay. So about 3 is probably good. If you are a bigger person, you can take up maybe 4, even, up to what they're telling you to do. But I've never muscle tested well with 12. That's just
One thing to add to that is if you're working with us one-on-one and we're giving you therapeutic doses, we might recommend a higher level that's different from what we're saying right now. Okay, it depends on each person. Okay.
okay.
There's one about the magnesium. So I'm looking at my current magnesium supplement. It is magnesium citrate. Thoughts about magnesium citrate? Good question. The different forms of magnesium do matter in terms of absorbability. There are 2 factors to look at. One is how easily they absorb. The other is how much do they impact the lining of your intestines and cause irritability. So when we talk about your tolerance level for magnesium, certain forms of magnesium will cause you to have loose bowels. And in fact, a lot of constipation relief products are a magnesium because it binds fat and it moves your bowels out quickly. So citrate is sort of in the middle of the road in terms of the sensitivity that people would have toward it.
I'm going
But
to do a timeout, Chris, on that one. Okay. So my answer to that, everyone, is that if you're taking the same magnesium, you are not addressing your heart. You're not addressing your brain. You're not addressing your other organs. You have to rotate magnesium. That is the answer, everyone. Okay. So if you're going to do citrate, do it for a couple of days and you change it to glycerophosphate, you change it to taurinate, you change it to orotate, you change it to some other forms. You want to switch the magnesiums around. You do not want to only do one thing because the magnesium different forms will only address one thing or the particular organ or the system. That's why take a look at the PDF, we go into it. So if you've been doing the same magnesium, it's time for you to introduce new things. Just as your brain, if you're going to do, brain work and you don't want the deterioration of your brain, you need to introduce your brain to new things, new music, new art, new foods, new way of driving back from your work. Go for walks on the different roads. Don't do the same thing every day. Don't wake up on the same side of the bed every day. Okay. That's what you want to do with your magnesium. Okay.
right. So I don't see any other specific questions in the chat.
Well, the demonstration things, I will be doing it during my masterclass on the moon wisdom. What I mean by that is this is at the quantum medicine, quantum biology, energy medicine level, where I actually take the supplement for you over the screen and I have you feel it in your body and we can all witness it. And if you've done private sessions with me, if you've done small group with me, I do this all the time. And it works like you guys are all like, oh my God. Yes, I will be demonstrating that. I'll be working on that. I take the supplement on my tongue and I become you in that moment. That's the true energy medicine, everyone. It isn't just about sending love, which is also important, but it's also about me tasting the supplement and I quantum leap over to your body and you will feel the difference just by me taking that supplement for you. That's the demonstration that I'll be doing during the Moon Wisdom course. So, I didn't get a chance to doing it today because we had a lot to cover. But
Sami, one last quick thing. That's yeah, everyone, if you haven't signed up for that program, please do. You can find it on the homepage, the Moon and Menopause program that Masami's talking about. I wanted to mention one last thing. Leanne, who's on this call, gave us permission. I'm not going to read the whole comment that she sent in to us, but I wanted to just point out that she has been diagnosed diabetic and she started these practices through especially what Masami was teaching through her 4Bs course and some of the other programs that we've done. But what Leanne said is that after doing these practices and really, really focusing on them, she said, when I went to the doctor 3 months later after the diabetes diagnosis, I had lost 8 pounds and my A1C had dropped from 7.9 to 6.5. So much of that work that she's referring to is the lifestyle practice. It's about living your life as a whole person and paying attention to all of those inputs in relation to your environment, in relation to your relationships with other people. And when you start adding in the supplements in addition to those ways of living that are supportive, that's when you really, really start to accelerate the results.
All right. I think that's good, Chris.
Yeah, I think we
I know this is
we could say so much more.
yeah, this is think of it as a part one, everyone, of this topic. We're going to do a part two next month, and then it will coincide with our metabolic cleanse program that we'll be doing. It's a huge topic, but know that no amount of your practices, let's say energy practice, spiritual practice, can stick till your blood is not sticky. That was good. That was good. Right.
But Tommy, there,
All
there,
right.
there are two questions that slid in right at the end. So one is it better to rotate separately rather than getting one magnesium form that has multiple forms? Yes.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Answer is yes. Okay. And then the other one is, do you recommend a continuous glucose monitor even if not diagnosed with diabetes?
Yes and no. Some practitioners love the monitoring. I'm not a huge fan of monitoring because I want to speak to my own body. My body's monitoring. My body's talking to me through symptoms. So I pay attention to symptoms. But, it's nothing wrong with having those monitors that's attached to your skin, and then those rings that people are wearing, those watches they're wearing. I don't do any of that because I don't want more EMFs in my body. But the glucose monitoring is not EMFs, but I just want to get to know myself more instead of a machine telling me who I am. So we are going to be bumping up against the AI from this point forward in our lives. And I will rely on AI to a certain point, but I want to rely on my own inner intelligence. Okay. Right. So that's why monitoring for me is a touchy subject. I think it can be helpful for some of you, but for me, I choose not to wear something like that 24/7 because I want to communicate with me. Okay. So that's my answer to that.
And learn the symptoms, learn the signs and symptoms that we put up. That's just a list of them. We've put them in other places on our website also. But I would just say that too. And in response is learn your body's language, learn the things that are pointing you toward imbalance and then what it takes to correct. We talked about it last month. Keep it simple. Okay. Go back to the basics. Are you feeding yourself? Are you hydrated? Are you sleeping? Are you taking care of those basic functions and doing your best not to put toxins into your body where you have some control over it with cookware and plastics and all of those kinds of things.
Right.
So yeah. So we should tie it off here. So, but thank you all for the questions and for all of you that wrote in your comments about what you learned today. We very much appreciate that.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.